What if the thing draining your energy isn't actually the people in your life, but your desperate need to change them? I spent years believing that love meant intervention, that caring required control. Then I read The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, and I realized I'd been carrying a burden that was never mine to carry. This book taught me what letting go really means and why it's the most powerful path to inner peace. When I first heard about the let them theory, I'll admit I was skeptical. The phrase let them sounded almost careless, like Robbins was suggesting we stop caring about the people who matter to us. But that couldn't have been further from what this book actually delivers. What I expected was maybe some surface-level advice about boundaries or detachment. What I got instead was a complete recalibration of how I understood my relationships, my anxiety, and my own sense of control. Mel Robbins isn't asking you to become indifferent or cold. She's inviting you into something far more courageous. The practice of allowing people to be exactly who they are, without needing to fix, manage, or micromanage them. What surprised me most was how deeply this idea challenged my own patterns. I started to see how much of my stress came from trying to orchestrate outcomes I had no business controlling. Robbins explores why we do this, why we exhaust ourselves trying to change people's minds, defend our choices, or make others see things our way. And she offers a radical alternative. What if you just let them? Let them judge you. Let them misunderstand you. Let them make their own mistakes. The book isn't about giving up on people. It's about giving up the illusion that their journey is yours to direct. What really struck me about this book is how Robbins gets to the emotional core of why we struggle to let go. She talks about the invisible contracts we create with people, the unspoken expectations that they should behave a certain way, choose what we'd choose, or validate our decisions. And when they don't, we feel betrayed, frustrated, or hurt. But Robbins argues that this suffering is self-inflicted. These contracts, the other person never signed them. They're living their own life, making their own choices, and we're exhausting ourselves trying to enforce agreements that only exist in our minds. One thing I loved about the let them theory is how it reframes boundaries. I used to think boundaries were about telling other people what they couldn't do, but Robbins helped me see that boundaries aren't about controlling others. They're about clarifying what you will and won't accept in your own life. It's not, you can't treat me this way. It's, I won't stay in situations where I'm treated this way. That subtle shift felt enormous to me. It put the power back in my hands. I wasn't waiting for someone else to change so I could feel okay. I was deciding what I needed and honoring it, regardless of what they chose to do. What shifted my perspective most was Robbins' exploration of why we take other people's choices so personally. She walks you through the realization that when someone disappoints you, it's rarely about you at all. They're operating from their own fears, wounds, and limitations. And when you can separate their behavior from your worth, you stop needing them to be different for you to feel whole. I found this idea both liberating and challenging. Liberating because it meant I could finally stop trying to prove myself or earn approval. Challenging because it required me to sit with the discomfort of not being chosen, not being understood, or not being prioritized, and to let that be okay. Mel Robbins also dives into the concept of emotional freedom and how much of it depends on releasing the need to be right. She talks about how we spend so much energy defending our decisions, explaining ourselves, or trying to make people see our side. But when you embrace the let them theory, you stop needing to win the argument. You let them think what they think. You let them disagree, and you trust that your peace matters more than their approval. I personally felt this in my own life when I stopped over-explaining my choices to people who weren't really asking, I was just afraid they'd judge me if I didn't justify myself first. One thing I personally appreciated was how Robbins balances strength with compassion. She's not telling you to cut people off or become cold. She's teaching you how to care without carrying, how to love people while still protecting your energy, how to want the best for someone without making their growth your responsibility. She reminds you that everyone is on their own timeline, learning their own lessons, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let them figure it out. That doesn't make you selfish. It makes you wise. The let them theory has the power to completely transform how you move through the world. If you've been feeling drained by relationships that require constant management, exhausted by people-pleasing, or stuck in resentment because others won't change, this book offers a way forward. It teaches you that you can love someone and still let them make their own choices. You can set boundaries and still be kind. You can release control and still protect your peace. Imagine what your life could look like if you stopped waiting for permission to prioritize yourself. If you trusted that other people's opinions of you are none of your business. If you gave yourself the freedom to walk away from what no longer serves you, without guilt, without explanation, without needing anyone to understand. That's what Robbins is offering here. Not a quick fix, but a fundamental shift in how you relate to yourself and everyone around you. And honestly, that kind of shift changes everything. It brings you back to yourself. It clears the noise. It makes space for the life you actually want to live. Like and subscribe for more book breakdowns and mindset insights.